Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, and before I start listing off cards in this video, super quick update to one of my last videos recently about the WPN program change. Instead of 4 tiers, they're going for just premium or not, and I think what they said about the program is highly misleading in the news article now that I saw the actual details, which have actually been published. They made it sound like just do really well and you might get an invite, and I think they said it was only the top 5% of stores, so I assumed that was the benchmark. Nope, it's specific static numbers. So if your store wants to get into the WPN premium tier, premium status, they need 20 activated players, which they didn't explain any of these terms, by the way, anywhere. But I believe that would be new DCI number registrations, so in other words, new players. So in 1 year, you need 20 of those, and then you need 60 engaged players, whatever that is. I assume it's unique individuals that show up for, I didn't want to misquote it, so I looked it up, 6 events per year. So 6 total F&M attendances or pre-releases total combined. So yeah, pretty easy to do. And those are doable, but the third requirement is crazy. 3,000 tickets, as they call it, which is a big misnomer. 3,000 total individual attendances to events at all. Any format, any day, F&M, pre-release, doesn't matter. I mean, Modern Monday and Commander Thursday, whatever y'all do. If that all adds up to 3,000, you're in. So if you're at a store that holds F&M and you consistently get an average of 30 players at every single F&M, you're halfway there, because that would be just over 1,500 per year. And yeah, a lot of people go to pre-releases. I've been to ones with, 30, 40, 50 people. I've been to ones with well over 100 actually too. And then a lot of people run them on Saturday and Sunday. Cool. So you can pick up like a couple hundred entries. But still, if your store isn't running like weekday or like Sunday events to supplement F&M, they are not going to get this. And they got to be pretty big regardless. I mean, 3,000 is nuts. But remember, if you and 7 other people show up to your LGS just on some random day and just say, hey, put this in the Wizards event reporting software, they can do it. Boom, that's more entries. Even if the entries were free. They didn't say anything about this being paid entries. That's up to the store. They just have to check in the tournament as existing. It just is a thing that happened. That's why I don't like the term ticket. But anyway, that's how your store could qualify. So what are some cards that are currently standard in legal? Screw it, I'm leaving that line in. That might actually spike in popularity, not necessarily price, because a lot of these are uncommons, but just popularity when War of the Spark comes out. So in other words, what should you consider when building a deck if you know you're going to have to go up against planeswalkers? And unless the entire set is dead on arrival, you're going to have to go up against planeswalkers. Well, the first one is Baird, Stewart of Archive. I'm surprised this isn't more heavily played right now at all. This is basically Archangel of Tithes. But then again, I was surprised that it took that one about 1.5 years to get off of the $2 mark or whatever the hell it was, and then all of a sudden it hit like 25. It's the kind of card where it either drops into a deck and fits perfectly, or it doesn't, and I guess this one just didn't. So he's just simply a 2/4 for 4 vigilance, that's nice, and creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. So it's just a little barrier to getting flooded. So if you've already got 2, 3, 4 planeswalkers out in play, this dude is going to defend the crap out of them, not only just by being a vigilant 2/4, but by that absurdly powerful effect. So I fully expect him to be a planeswalker bodyguard. Next up, well, some of these are more obvious than others. Bedevil, 3 cost, instant speed, it destroys a planeswalker. Plus it could also hit an artifact or a creature, so it's not planeswalker specific. So you'll get some use out of it even if you go up against somebody running 0 planeswalkers. I mean, 100% automatic this card is going to be popular if people play Rakdos. I mean, first of all, there's 0 generic in this. It's double black, single red. And honestly, because of that, even if it's 3 color, it would be pretty hard to make this work. I mean, exactly 2 black and exactly 1 red, not the other way around and not any other color mix, kind of takes away from the fact that this costs 3. But mostly red splash black is a deck right now. True actual Rakdos with a lot of spectacle is a little bit of a deck for a while, at least it was. So yeah, the archetype's already there. And I think that Rakdos would be very, very good against planeswalkers because a lot of their effects can hit a player or a planeswalker. Speaking of that, next up we got Cavalcade of Calamity. People already play this, I've seen it, and it's whenever a creature you control with power 1 or less attacks, then it deals 1 damage to the player or planeswalker that creature is attacking. So it's kind of like a pseudo double strike trample, kind of. The problem is just about your whole damn deck has to have power 1 or less, which is really dumb, and then there's only 4 of these in a deck, but I don't remember the exact rest of the deck that people were playing this with, but it was really good. So who knows, a little bit of a long shot, but you never know. What's not a long shot is Goblin Chainwhirler. By the way, the reason Planeswalker heavy decks are not going to work is just red. Just the color red. Not even just red specifically right now, because holy crap, yeah, but just red in general. Red kills Planeswalkers. Optional damage pointing at Planeswalkers, that's huge. So this dude, I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but it's a 3/3 for 3 first strike. Okay, that's huge. He can swing away after that, cool. And then when he enters the battlefield, he deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and Planeswalker they control. So you can ping all their Planeswalkers for 1, and then after that you got a 3/3 first striker. They should have banned this piece of crap a year ago before the rotation. And next up, big surprise here, Vraska's Contempt. Duh, it exiles a creature, so exiling instead of killing, cool. And then you can also hit a Planeswalker and you also gain 2 life. So it's instant speed, it's got everything going for it, and the card's already, I think, $20. Next up, the Eldest Reborn, one of my personal favorites. The first one is they sacrifice a creature or Planeswalker, so they either have to sack the creature guarding the Planeswalker army, or one of the Planeswalkers. I've killed Teferis with these. And then what's a really fun thing to target with the third ability? Oh yeah, another Planeswalker. Oh, and what do Planeswalker decks tend to do? Play kind of slowly and hold Planeswalkers in their hands. Uh-oh, so all 3 of those are just gonna nuke somebody. It's a little late, it's a little slow. This thing would legit be a $5 uncommon if it costs 4, but it takes care of business. I will say that. Next up, another anti-Planeswalker card, the Immortal Sun. Everybody's been talking about this. Players can't activate Planeswalker's loyalty abilities. I mean, they might as well not even be there. You literally can't even just uptick them for the fun of it. No, you cannot use their abilities. They are a glorified lawn ornament. Oh, and then all the other effects are completely nuts. The only problem is it costs 6, but I think that's made up for by the fact that literally any deck can run this. So this is definitely like a sideboard card for, oh, just about anything, really. Next up, this one's kind of interesting. I've seen people play it with kind of mixed results. It's a Johnny's Last Stand. I think it's overpriced for what it does, but whenever a creature or Planeswalker, keep that in mind, you control dies, you may sacrifice this enchantment. If you do, create a 4/4 white avatar creature token with flying, so basically an angel. And then if somebody makes you discard this card, the effect goes off as well, so that's kind of neat. So your one bodyguard, like for example Baird, who's guarding all the Planeswalkers you're playing, they die. Cool, now you get a replacement instantly. Now, couldn't you have just cast a 4/4 flyer for 4? Probably, I'm sure that exists somewhere. And otherwise, why wait for a Planeswalker to die first before you get out a better bodyguard for them? So this card's very questionable, but you never know. Next up is basically all of the legendary sorceries, which nobody played at all because Dominaria just couldn't get its crap together and put a deck together, I guess. And honestly, I think this is probably the most likely among all of them, although one of the other one's pretty tasty too. So this is crazy. This is Rolling Thunder times 3. So it's double red X, and then it deals X damage to each of up to 3 targets. So you make X equals 4, pick 3 targets, you do 12 damage total for each. So that's players, creatures, other Planeswalkers. You can hit anything with this. This card's crazy. It is double red, which, okay, but as long as you have a Planeswalker out, you could just take out a whole row of creatures. And this works crazy well with like a Sarkhan Jaya mixed deck. Some kind of mid-range Sarkhan's Unsealing thing, watch out. The problem is that's already a thing. But hey, I'm sure we'll get a Chandra, and I mean, I'm actually pretty sure we'll probably get like 7 different red Planeswalkers. Red or red mix. So the next one is Cabal's Druidic Vile. I played this one in a Marwyn deck. I thought it was lovely. It's not great, but I mean, in an all Planeswalkers deck, it would be kind of funny. But once again, double green. Oh, if you're playing like 4 or 5 color Super Friends, which is a Planeswalker heavy deck, this would be a little rough. But if you can get this off even for a couple into X, it would be absurd. So, oh, by the way, I should mention, legendary sorceries can only be cast if you control a legendary creature or Planeswalker, and apparently not legendary lands or artifacts. That's fair. Anyway, so you look at the top X cards in your library, you may put any number of land and or legendary permanent cards with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. put the rest into your graveyard. So even if you had 7 mana, put 5 into X, you could probably get out most planeswalkers. So every single planeswalker you come across, boom, you're dropping it straight into play, as well as any lands at all that you come across. Now, if you got up to like X equals 10, oh my gosh, in a planeswalker heavy deck, that would be devastating. But a lot of things have to go right. And, would you have already won with the game state by the time this is in your hand and qualified? So next up, this one's interesting. Karn's Temporal Sundering. So it costs 6, legendary sorcery, okay, and then target player takes an extra turn after this one. Return up to 1 non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Exile this card, which is what every single extra turn card should say on it. And I believe up until this point, with a couple exceptions, every card did say that. But nope, not Nexus of Fate, because screw you. That is, by the way, one of the biggest unwritten rules of MTG is if you take an extra turn, exile whatever the hell caused it. You won't find it in a rulebook anywhere, but you'll find it on an awful lot of cards, making it like an unofficial policy. So anyway, no special nothing to this, but if you're in a Planeswalker heavy deck, taking an extra turn is pretty nuts. So I could see this maybe working. It's still 6, it's still double blue, but we'll see. Next up, okay, this one's crazy. Primeval's Glorious Rebirth. I mean, yeah, it's 7. That's not great. But return all legendary permanent cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So every planeswalker that you either self-milled, discarded, or got killed just came back. I mean, I could see people running 1 or 2. The problem is mixed color. That really limits your options, but it is 2 colors and then 5 generic. So even in like a 5-color deck, you could probably pull this off. And by the time you have 7, you probably have black and white available. So this one seems pretty realistic, I guess. And the next one is Urza's Ruinous Blast. I mean, it's a board wipe that's conditional for 5 at sorcery speed. That's not very good, but exile, not just destroy, exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. Every planeswalker in standard is legendary. That would make this an asymmetric board wipe for 5, and as a general rule, actual asymmetric board wipes cost 9 mana. So if everything on their side of the board gets exiled and nothing on your side of the board gets exiled, that's asymmetric. You want to do that. There is no coming back from that. So with 1 white, not double white, this could very well be the most popular one. I mean, everybody knows Super Friends decks very, very, very often rely on board wipes, and this is the best one. And finally, the last one. Yeah, I know, I'm surprised there's 6 as well. I guess Primevals was a bonus. Because the rest are 1 of every color, in case you didn't notice. So we've got Yogmoths Vile Offering. Very good card, but it's interesting. It's not double black, and it's only 5. Cool. Put up to 1 target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard, so a graveyard, either one, onto the battlefield under your control, and then destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker, so it's like this weird reverse Eldest Reborn kind of, and then exile this card because, my god, do you not need to cast this twice. So first you go get either the craziest creature or planeswalker in anybody's graveyard that was put there this game. Next, you destroy their best creature or planeswalker, and then you proceed with the rest of your turn. Yeah, this card's crazy. It's very niche, but I mean, you almost have to assume that they're going to blow up one of your planeswalkers. This would get it back and probably get rid of what killed it in the first place. Pretty good card. I mean, 5's high. It's not instant speed, but you never know. So that's it for legendary sorceries, but we have a very similar card, MOX Amber. You drop it in for 0, and then it can tap immediately, by the way, and add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures or planeswalkers you control. Okay, this is almost unplayable in 5-color planeswalkers, aka Super Friends, but in like a more limited, I'm running some legendary creatures and some planeswalkers, it would work. I mean, it's very, very, very similar to the card Reflecting Pool, where it can generate mana for lands that you already have in play. Now, this doesn't work if all your planeswalkers or legendary creatures get blown up, so it is unreliable. That's why this card never really took way off, but it's damn good ramp for a mostly planeswalkers deck as long as the colors are tight. Next up, one of the craziest cards I possibly could have put on this list, Oath of Teferi. I don't love that it costs 5. I'll put that out there right now. But when it enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent you control, return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. You could flicker a planeswalker that just used a negative. I mean, I guess. It is mandatory that you flicker something, by the way. But the second part is you may activate the loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control twice each turn rather than only once. Holy crap, it's basically Chain Veil. More evidence that Teferi is the most overpowered cheater in the history of printed cards. Yes, he's worse than Jace. By far. You drop this in and the game's over. People are just going to start dropping alts left and right, and enchantments are almost impossible to get rid of in gameplay right now. For example, the entire color red cannot get rid of enchantments. I don't know if you noticed that. There are no cards in red that can get rid of an enchantment. That's another unwritten rule of the game. My issue with it is it costs 5. Why don't you just drop in a planeswalker that costs 4 instead a lot earlier and just start using the abilities? I mean, yeah, and if you get a lot of use out of this, it's because you have like 3 or 4 planeswalkers in play, at which point you probably won already. So you're probably better off holding the 5 mana on like a disallow, or not disallow, absorb. So I don't know, but boy, it is definitely interesting. It's definitely the best planeswalker interaction we have. Next up, the Eldest Reborn Jr., Plaguecrafter. This card was pretty hot after it first came out, and then it kind of crapped out a little bit. It's in some obnoxious Esper decks, though. But yeah, it's a 3/2 for 3, so that's cool. And when it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices, by the way, including you, sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. So if they have no creatures, bye-bye. If they have 1 creature guarding a planeswalker or 2, bye-bye. So, oh, and each player who can't discards a card. So if you just killed the last planeswalker, then drop this into play, they now have to discard probably another planeswalker that they're holding in hand. Holy crap, this card's good. I think that we are going to see this a lot. Next up, another interesting card that next to nobody plays. I mean, I've seen it in draft, that's about it. Settle the Score. It costs 4, sorcery speed, that sucks, but exile target creature and then put 2 loyalty counters on a planeswalker you control. 2 loyalty, okay, in the same turn that you could activate one of their abilities. You could ult them the turn after they come out in some cases. So for 4 mana, you get rid of a threat to one of your planeswalkers while accelerating their, I guess, race to get their ultimate off. I don't love that it's double black, but in a black heavy deck that runs planeswalkers, I absolutely would expect to see this. I'd say it's on par with Chupacabra, because it's a 4-cost kill spell, except that it can also take out a planeswalker, and it has a fun little nice side effect. The side effect of the 4-cost kill spell Chupacabra is you get a crappy 2/2 creature, by the way. And next up, no surprise here, Shalai, Voice of Plenty. You and planeswalkers you control and other creatures have hexproof. So even if they have a Vraska's Contempt, too bad, they aren't allowed to target your planeswalkers. Now, Eldest Reborn, because of how it's phrased, would still work, but there's a lot of other effects that would not. Plus, she's a 3/4 flyer for 4, so that's a pretty good defensive bodyguard for planeswalker decks. Next up, one of my absolute all-time favorite cards from the latest set, Thrash or Threat. Specifically Thrash. I mean, I do love creating 4/4 creatures with trample. That's pretty good at assassinating planeswalkers, but target creature for 2 as an instant with either color. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. That's right, it's Rabid Bite for planeswalkers. But it can also hit creatures, so it's not useless if they're not playing planeswalkers. It would be inconceivable to run a Gruul deck without this card once War of the Spark comes out. So I expect this to probably triple in price. And finally, no big surprise with this one, via Shino Pyromancer. I think if they were going to choose a card realistically to ban from mono red, it would be this one, especially with War of the Spark in context. Because you might not have noticed this, but he can do 2 damage to target player or planeswalker, and mono red literally anything. Spell heavy, burn, splash black spectacle, all in elemental, mid-range, anything just crushes the crap out of planeswalkers, and this card especially. Mix this with direct to the planeswalker damage and haste creatures, and they will not be able to get out a planeswalker against a red deck. It just can't happen. And since we're going to get some cards that are red in the next set, I think the red deck wins is going to get way worse. So I legitimately think they're going to ban this, but if they don't, this is going to be red's #1 weapon against planeswalkers, by far. So that's it for cards that specifically interact with planeswalkers in a meaningful way. I mean, I did skip really generic stuff like Banefire. Yeah, I'm sure Banefire will be played because past 5 it can't be countered, and counter spells tend to guard Planeswalker decks. So yeah, 5 damage to a Planeswalker with Banefire would be pretty funny. It's also really good removal, and people already play it, and it's already like kind of a high price for actually a reprint, because remember, it's not a new card. So yeah, there's some others. So if you've got a card that you're like, oh man, this is going to be really significant in War of the Spark, leave it down in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and you know I got to plug them again. Discover credit cards. Link in the description. It's an affiliate link. I make money if you sign up for a Discover card, which of course costs you nothing. No annual fee. They got really good APRs. In fact, I think you get no interest for 14 months now. That's the thing they're running this year, I think. Their customer support is so much better than Visa's, it's laughable. And even if you're like, nah, I'm happy with my cards, I mean, nothing's stopping you from signing up for this one and just keeping it in your car and basically never using it unless you forget your wallet at the gas station. I have a credit card hidden in my car somewhere. You know, because I've gone to the gas station without my wallet exactly one time, and that was some drama. But honestly, you might want to use it because they have some killer 5% categories like, you know, grocery stores, 5% cash back. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I eat food. So hey, never hurts to click the link and check them out. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next video.